For decades, Eastern Nagaland asked for one thing: not praise, not rewards, not sympathy, just to be seen. Last week in New Delhi, an agreement was signed. It created the Frontier Nagaland Territorial Authority, FNTA, for 6 districts in Eastern Nagaland. Some called it historic, others said it was long overdue. But before we ask what FNTA will do, we need to ask something harder. If the problem was known for decades, why did the solution arrive only now? And what does that delay tell us about governance and power in Nagaland? Where Eastern Nagaland is, and why it matters. Eastern Nagaland includes 6 districts: Tuensang, Mon, Longleng, Kipire, Noklak, and Shamai Etor. It is home to 8 major Naga tribes: Konyak, Sangtam, Chang, Kiamniungan, Yimkyung, Tikir, Phom, and Sumi. This region is geographically vast, culturally distinct, politically distant. That distance is not just about roads. It is administrative, it is emotional. And that distance explains why FNTA is not merely a governance reform. It is about who gets noticed and who waits. What was signed without the jargon? On February 5, 2026, a tripartite agreement was signed between the Government of India, the Government of Nagaland, and the Eastern Nagaland Peoples Organisation. The agreement created FNT. In simple terms, a regional authority for 6 eastern districts with powers over 46 subjects, its own administrative structure, and development funds earmarked specifically for the region. What it did not do, it did not create a separate state, and it did not touch Article 371A. On paper, this is administrative empowerment, but in the Northeast, paper has often promised more than reality delivered. A region administered last. To understand why FNTA took so long, we have to go back. During British rule, this region was known as the Tuensang area. Because of rugged terrain and resistance, it was declared an excluded area. It was never fully governed, only partially controlled. In 1937, when Burma was separated from India, Eastern Naga tribes were split across borders, fracturing administration and identity. So Eastern Nagaland entered independent India already on the margins of governance, statehood, and the miscorrection. Nagaland became a state in 1963, but Tuensang was treated differently from the beginning. Under the 16-point agreement, it was placed under the governor with special funding to help it catch up. That arrangement ended in 1974. Tuensang was fully integrated into the state. Integration happened, correction did not. The development gap remained, and over time it hardened. When discontent turned into demand, poor roads, weak connectivity, uneven access to services, limited influence in decision-making, what began as frustration slowly became a political diagnosis. Eastern leaders began calling it stepmotherly treatment. By the 1990s, the discontent was organized. By 2005, ENPO emerged as a unified regional voice. Their question was direct. If governance within the state was not working, why should the region keep waiting? That question eventually became a demand for a separate Frontier Nagaland. Why Delhi and Kohima pushed back? For both the union government and the state government, a separate state was a red line. It meant territorial division, political restructuring, constitutional risk. So alternatives were offered. Packages, councils, assurances. They were rejected because this was no longer about money. It was about control, dignity, and who decides. Why it took decades. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Eastern Nagaland's grievances were not invisible. They were documented, discussed, reviewed. But the Northeast is often governed reactively, not proactively. Attention arrives only after pressure, protest, and prolonged discomfort. Administrative solutions tend to appear only after patience has already run out. FNTA is not proof that the system listens early. It is proof that it listens late. The long negotiation arc. From 2010 onward, talks dragged on. There were election boycotts, shutdowns, non-cooperation movements, yet the movement remained nonviolent. That mattered. By 2022, dialogue resumed seriously. By late 2024, tripartite talks took shape. The breakthrough came with a compromise, not a separate state, but a powerful autonomous authority within Nagaland. That compromise is FNTA. What 46 subjects really means. 46 subjects sounds technical, but its consequences are not. First, the budget. FNTA gets a separate earmarked budget, not a separate state treasury. Funds come from the union government and through the state. In theory, these funds cannot be diverted, but autonomy without timely release is autonomy only on paper. Second, the power. This is not sovereignty, not separation. It is functional autonomy. FNTA can shape decisions on roads, health, education, livelihoods, water, land use, welfare, and agriculture. For the first time, planning can reflect terrain, culture, and access, not just files moving through distant offices. Third, the political tension. Existing MILs remain MLAs. Their seats do not disappear, but an execution power shifts. Voice remains, control reduces. That rebalancing is where future friction will emerge. Will this reduce dependence on Kohima? That is the promise, but promises are not outcomes. If implemented honestly, approval shorten, planning localizes, governance adapts. If not, FNTA risks becoming another layer, another name, same distance. Decentralization can liberate governance, or it can simply rearrange it. How FNTA will really be judged? Not by agreements, not by subject lists, but by outcomes. By whether power is exercised, by whether funds arrive on time, by whether accountability moves closer to people, not further away. Agreements don't change realities. Implementation does. What this agreement is and is not. FNTA is a recognition of long-standing neglect, an administrative correction, a structural shift. It is not sudden generosity, a miracle solution, or proof that neglect never existed. FNTA matters because neglect existed. Both truths must be held together. The question that remains, FNTA matters, but so does the time it took to arrive. What if Eastern Nagaland did not have to wait decades to be heard? What if governance came before frustration? FNTA shows what is possible. It also shows how late possibility often arrives. Closing. After the agreement. This is Grassroots lens. We don't follow announcements. We follow what comes after them. Because agreements are signed in rooms, but their meaning is tested on the ground. We will keep watching, not just when attention arrives, but long after it moves on. If these stories matter to you, support the channel so they can travel further together. Thank you.